By day, he is a star lawyer who helps scumbags escape conviction. By night, he is a professional hitman who personally sends those pieces of trash to hell. And the people he serves are all scum with ironclad evidence against them, the kind even top law firms refuse to defend. Byung-ha exploits legal loopholes to repeatedly wash their sins clean, which not only fuels the rage of the victims' families, but also makes him a media sensation chased by every outlet. When the victims' families hurl eggs at him, as a liar, all he does is lower his head and hurry away. Only when he gets back in the car does the client who had looked so dejected finally burst into wild laughter. Byung-ha sits beside him, forcing a dry laugh, his face full of obsequious flattery. At that moment, the client, Chairman Park, asks curiously, "When there was so much evidence against me, how did you manage to overturn it all?" Byung-ha looks utterly innocent. "Because there wasn't any to begin with, so I just insisted there was none." If anyone pressed further about where that evidence went, it would make Ha-gil very embarrassed. The two lock eyes, and the next second, they both start laughing. Chairman Park is very satisfied with this lawyer, and even offers to make him head of the legal department for his conglomerate. Byung-ha just smiles and says that for today, he should rest well, and that soon, he will pay him another visit. When night falls, Chairman Park arranges a tryst with two lovers in a high-rise hotel room. Just as they are about to move to second base, the woman near the window suddenly hears a noise, and hurriedly warns, "It sounds like someone's coming from outside." The person approaching is none other than Byung-ha. He stands casually outside the window. "Don't be nervous, I'm just out for a walk and happened to pass by." Chairman Park's face is full of question marks. This is the 34th floor. He immediately becomes furious. "Isn't the job already done? Why are you still here?" Byung-ha tone is calm. "Didn't I say earlier that I'd come see you again? And this time it's a new commission." Chairman Park sits up, utterly confused about this commission. Byung-ha adds, "That was my oversight. I forgot to explain in advance." This time, the case isn't being entrusted to the lawyer. Chairman Park grins. "I don't know what's going on, but you found the wrong guy. Dogs should eat dog food. If they dare eat a human's meal, they'll be torn to pieces alive." At that moment, Byung-ha speaks softly. "Chairman, there's a famous saying in a certain line of work. Those who master blades are third-rate. Those who master all weapons are second-rate." At these words, a chill runs down Chairman Park's spine. He suddenly remembers a rumor about a certain person, a monster who can even use octopus tentacles to kill. Byung-ha continues, "As for first-rate, they say such people can turn anything in the world into a weapon." Chairman Park steels himself and roars, "Come on, first-rate. Let's see what's faster, your blade or my octopus tentacle." Just then, Byung-ha finishes assembling a gun and looks up, puzzled. "What are you talking about? I'm third-rate." Chairman Park is so terrified he immediately drops his katana and raises his hands in surrender. "This isn't fair. You're a lawyer, not a hitman." Byung-ha pauses for a moment, as if defining himself. "I'm both a lawyer and a hitman. To put it simply, I'm a hitman lawyer. And the reason he works as both lawyer and hitman starts with an organization. In this country, there exists a group called the Glory Club. Outwardly, they proclaim themselves a public interest organization in service of humanity. In reality, they are a dark force that even provides murder as a full-service package. When he was young, Byung-ha earned his wages by working himself to the bone as one of their volunteers. One day, a thought suddenly occurred to him. How long am I going to live like this? Even if I devote my entire life to this place, at best I might claw my way up to B rank. That so-called Peter, that legendary powerhouse, was nothing but a mirage to him. 16th place in Glory Club C rank was his ceiling at the time. He was doing work that could cost him his life at any moment, yet truth be told, he had no idea what else he could do. Passing by a sushi shop, he watched the chef's knife skills and seriously considered, should I become a sushi chef? After all, the only thing I'm good with is a knife. Just then, he saw a sales ad, the one and only chance to change your life, become a lawyer. At first, he didn't take it seriously. He'd seen too many of these coarse scams. This only works for people who are truly suited to it. Unexpectedly, he really did seem to have a talent he himself had never noticed, the ability to learn. It was this talent that allowed him, through sheer force, to study his way from hitman to lawyer. Inside, he was overjoyed. As long as I don't have to risk my life anymore and can just get by with my mouth, that doesn't sound bad at all. Later, he took the money he had earned by risking his life and opened a small law firm of his own. All that was left was to make money honestly from a safe position. However, 5 months passed without a single client, and the interest on his loans kept piling up. Just as he was wandering around looking for a place to rest in peace, a huge commission with a terrifying fee suddenly dropped into his lap. Before long, he met the client in prison, Joe Duchan, a piece of trash whom every other lawyer had given up on. Yet even so, Joe Duchan remained arrogant toward the one lawyer who had accepted his case. "Why are you only showing up now? Since you've taken the money, hurry up and get me out. Don't you want to make money? Byung-ha tells him to take that back. Jo Do-chan sneers, and if I don't, what can you do about it? The veins pop on Byung-ha forehead. He can barely contain his anger. I'm a lawyer now, so I can only hold it in until the third time. And what about the fourth? What can you do then, coward? Byung-ha grabs a fountain pen and drives it hard into the back of Jo Do-chan's hand. He suddenly springs to his feet and clamps one hand around the man's throat. Even if it costs me my life, I'll pierce the throat of scum like you. Jo Do-chan is so scared he bursts into tears, begging for mercy over and over, promising to watch his mouth in the future. But Byung-ha still isn't satisfied. You little punk, how dare you use informal speech with your elder? Just then, Jo Do-chan's voice cuts in. Hey, lawyer, what are you thinking about? Why aren't you answering my question? It turns out everything just now was nothing but a murderous fantasy in his head. In reality, he desperately needs this commission fee to barely keep his law office afloat. So he can only lower his head and apologize, secretly vowing, one day, I'll kill you with my own hands. He then sits down, his tone returning to professional. This case is difficult even for the judge. The facts are clear. You beat a passerby to death, and the entire thing was captured clearly on camera. Jo Do-chan is indifferent. So what? Getting me out is your job. Byung-ha shakes his head. Unless the victim's family agrees to a settlement, there's no other way. Jo Do-chan gives a sly grin. So there is a way. Go make that guy agree to settle. Inside, Byung-ha sneers. If you were in his place, would you agree? After that, he sets off for the victim's home. All the way there, he mutters nonstop. What lunatic would agree to settle with the man who killed their family member? Maybe I should just turn back now. Still, I've survived on the battlefield for 15 years. Getting one little settlement stamp shouldn't be a big deal. Before long, he finally meets the victim's son, Kim Ji-hoo. Even though Byung-ha kneels down on the spot, full of apparent sincerity, Ji-hoo still mercilessly tells him to leave. Byung-ha has no choice but to take out the settlement agreement. As long as you sign, you'll receive a settlement payment of 1 billion won. To save that much money by putting away 2 million a month, you'd need 42 full years. As he speaks, a few feet suddenly appear outside on the window ledge. Uninvited guests are closing in, but the two people inside remain completely unaware. Ji-hoo asks, as long as I sign on that line, the billion will be transferred immediately, right? If it were you, Mr. Lawyer, could you forgive the monster who killed your father and threw him into a river? Byung-ha is stunned. If it were him, he would never agree to a settlement either. At that moment, someone starts pounding on the door, shattering the brief silence. The men who enter are two burly thugs who have come to collect a debt from Ji-hoo. With just one glance, Byung-ha instantly recognizes the tired old scam. Even though Ji-hoo repeatedly explains that he never borrowed money and doesn't owe anyone, they keep pressing in aggressively. Suddenly, Byung-ha cuts in, his voice low. How about we sit down and talk this over properly? The leader, Woo Tae-sik, narrows his eyes slightly, unsure who he is. But then, Byung-ha quickly raises his hands and puts on an apologetic look. Don't get me wrong, I'm just a passing lawyer. With that, he picks up his briefcase and turns to leave. Watching his back, Woo Tae-sik says blandly, that guy looks more like a hitman than a lawyer. Off to the side, Ji-hoo also begins to doubt the true identity of this strange uncle. After leaving, Byung-ha immediately contacts Jo Do-chan to report. I did my best to persuade him, but the victim's family is still grieving and won't budge for now. However, opening people's hearts is what I do best. They'll definitely change their minds later. Jo Do-chan cuts him off. No need to bother. Those two fake debt collectors will take care of everything. Meanwhile, the two men have already cornered Ji-hoo inside his home. Taking advantage of a brief distraction, Ji-hoo quickly pulls out a box cutter. Even so, he still looks especially small and frail before the two large, muscular thugs. Woo Tae-sik suddenly grabs him by the hair and slaps him hard. At that moment, the supposedly departed Byung-ha once again poked half his body in from outside the window. He had come back to retrieve his settlement agreement. Of course, this settlement agreement was very likely a deliberate setup he had left behind. The two thugs didn't take him seriously at all. When Wang Tae-gil reached out to shove him away, Ji-hoo seized the moment, slashed Woo Tae-sik's hand with the box cutter, and yanked himself free to escape. Completely enraged, Woo Tae-sik kicked him and sent him flying. How could an ordinary high schooler possibly stand up to a professional enforcer? Just as Woo Tae-sik continued to threaten him viciously, Byung-ha shattered the window with a kick and burst in like a cannonball, his knee driving straight into the man's chin. Ji-hoo stood frozen, witnessing the entire scene. Byung-ha landed steadily, while Woo Tae-sik crashed heavily to the floor with a dull thud. But in the very next second, Byung-ha suddenly began calmly reciting Article 319 of the Korean Criminal Act. Unlawful intrusion into another's residence is punishable by up to 3 years imprisonment or a fine of up to 5 million won. Debt Collection Act. Article 9. Those who, without just cause, employ illegal means to collect debts, causing fear, anxiety, or harm to the debtor, may be sentenced to up to 3 years imprisonment. Seeing things turn bad, Wu Tae-sik immediately drew a knife and charged, ordering Hwang Tae-gil at the same time to grab Byung-ha-gil. He himself timed his leap, ready to bring the blade down. Yet Byung-ha-gil remained utterly calm, standing motionless where he was. In the next instant, he violently flung off Hwang Tae-gil, then, without even looking back, swung his leg in a sideways kick, sending Wu Tae-sik flying in midair. He followed by ripping the belt from the man's waist, and continued coolly, unlawful confinement, Criminal Act, Article 276. Anyone who illegally confines another person may be sentenced to up to 5 years imprisonment or a fine of up to 7 million won. He stood there radiating pressure, his gaze razor-sharp. Ji-hoo, meanwhile, seemed to have crashed like a frozen computer, just standing there in a daze, his face full of shock from beginning to end. I spent a lot of money on this hairstyle, and you actually had the nerve to mess it up. Do you have any idea how scary it is when a hitman, no, a lawyer, gets angry? All that harassment and intimidation you just pulled was just asking for trouble. Based on the current statutes, the total fines add up to about 42 million won. But since I haven't called the police, I'll settle for just taking these. I secretly recorded the entire process of your illegal confinement, violent debt collection, and assault, and the audio quality is crystal clear. If you have any legal questions in the future, feel free to seek my advice. Take this, Ji-hoo, you got lucky having a lawyer right at your side. But from now on, you have to stay alert at all times. Go give your father a proper farewell ceremony and see him off on his last journey with dignity. As for these bastards, I'll call the police and then throw them out. With that, he was about to step out the door. Suddenly a shout came from behind him, Mr. Byung-ha-gil frowned. Didn't I just say I'm not Mr.? But Ji-hoo didn't stop. Mister, you're not really a lawyer, are you? Hearing himself called Mr. again, Byung-ha-gil whirled around and shouted, agitated, I'm not. He then realized something was off and quickly added, I mean I'm not Mr. I am a lawyer, that's right, but I'm not just a lawyer. For now, just treat me as a lawyer. Ji-hoo's expression grew serious. Mr. The veins at Byung-ha-gil's temple began to throb, but then he heard Ji-hoo continue, I'd like to hire you. Byung-ha-gil was taken aback. Ji-hoo respectfully held out the stack of cash from earlier. Jo Do-chan, the man who killed my father. Please kill that bastard for me. Byung-ha-gil hurriedly waved his hands. Ji-hoo, I only came here for the settlement agreement. For something like this, you should go to the police. Your big brother here is just a lawyer, so I'll be going now. The light in Ji-hoo's eyes dimmed bit by bit. Flustered, Byung-ha-gil subconsciously found his feet carrying him toward the window he had kicked open. He forced himself to calm down. No, better go out through the door like a normal person. As he walked, he kept making excuses to himself. I just took a wrong turn, that's all. People make little mistakes. Besides, doors work both ways. All of a sudden, he stopped. A thought flashed through his mind. Wait, why didn't I think of this sooner? First, I hand over the settlement money to Ji-hoo, completing the settlement. Then I, as a lawyer, defend Jo Do-chan and collect 1 lawyer's fee. After that, I take the second commission fee from Ji-hoo, paid with that same settlement money, and as a hitman, I take care of Jo Do-chan. Which means, I earn double the payment. A perfect double commission. At this moment, Ji-hoo was still standing there in a daze. Byung-ha-gil handed him his handkerchief. Wipe your tears, my client. From this moment on, I, Byung-ha-gil, will take care of that man for you, cleanly and thoroughly. The next morning, Ji-hoo arrived at Byung-ha-gil's law office and was stunned by what he saw. Rather than a law firm, the place looked more like a criminal organization's hideout. In the end, he still mustered his courage and went up to that floor. Before he could knock, he heard blood-curdling screams and cries for help from inside. He spun around, thinking he had to run away at once. But the next second, a voice from inside shouted, I'm going to tear you into pieces and sell you off. Gritting his teeth, Ji-hoo turned back toward the door. I was wrong about him after all. This guy is clearly a gangster. No different from those criminals. Having made up his mind, he slammed the door open and rushed in, holding his phone high. I already called the police. Though he was so scared he didn't dare open his eyes, he still stood his ground. When he slowly opened his eyes, he was stunned. Byung-ha-gil was standing in front of the TV, and all those cruel lines had come from the drama. Ji-hoo hurriedly apologized. So, you were filming a TV show. Byung-ha-gil sighed. The TV's too old. If I don't smack it a few times, the picture won't show. Ji-hoo gave an awkward laugh. You're not going to hit me, are you? Once the misunderstanding was cleared up, Byung-ha-gil had Ji-hoo sit on the sofa and handed him a cup of VIP-only coffee. Looking at the instant coffee, Ji-hoo couldn't help complaining. Mr. Lawyer, shouldn't this be swapped with what you give regular clients? Byung-ha-gil answered solemnly. This one's too bitter, it's bad for your health. A student like you should drink something sweet so you have enough energy. Let's get down to business. If we want to kill Joe Duchan, we first have to get him released. The problem is, as you know, the evidence against him is overwhelming. The whole crime was recorded in perfect detail, almost as if it were intentionally left behind. Simply put, there's no way he can be released. Ji-hoo couldn't help retorting, I can't believe you can say that with a straight face. But Byun Ha-gil suddenly changed tack. However, your big brother still has one last move. Don't you want to know it? A way to overturn what seems absolutely impossible. Ji-hoo, I'm liar Byun Ha-gil. You've probably already guessed half of it, haven't you? Ji-hoo hadn't expected that he had done so much research in advance. While Ji-hoo was still lost in the fantasy of release Joe Duchan first, then kill him, Byun Ha-gil told him to calm down. Even so, to be honest, there's no way to help him truly escape. Even with a settlement, criminal liability doesn't disappear. Drunk driving, hit and run, abandoning the body, the entire process was clearly captured on surveillance. Not even the president could get him acquitted in this case. What am I supposed to do? The perfect double commission I'd planned to earn 2 fees has collapsed right at the first step. At this point, Ji-hoo asked, but in movies, undercover agents sneak into the scene and tamper with the evidence, right? Mister, is that what you did too? Byun Ha-gil immediately corrected him. Your big brother is a lawyer. Tampering with evidence sounds more like a job for a secret agent. Even as he said that, a brilliant idea suddenly flashed through his mind. He grabbed Ji-hoo's hand. Ji-hoo, do you have any idea how smart you are? After that, due to insufficient evidence, Joe Duchan was released. The case instantly triggered public outrage. As eggs from the victim's family flew at him, Byun Ha-gil smiled and didn't try to dodge, standing there and letting them splatter all over him. Joe Duchan, however, avoided everyone and even put on a fake, apologetic bow. Everyone, even though I did nothing wrong, please forgive me. But what can I do? The judge has already found me not guilty. This blatant provocation was nothing less than rubbing salt into open wounds. The victim's family struggled desperately, trying to break through the police line. At this moment, it officially became Byun Ha-gil's legal education time. In court, the power of evidence is indeed immense. Korea practices a strictly evidence-based trial system. Conversely, if there is no evidence, you are absolutely safe. No matter what you've done, as long as I rely on my superb hitman skills and uninspiring legal knowledge, sneaking in and tampering with evidence is nothing but a piece of cake. Just then, a voice called from behind him. Lawyer Byun Ha-gil. He turned and immediately recognized the caller. Are you talking to me, Prosecutor Han Jong-ki? It was the lead prosecutor on this case, who had just returned from training in the United States and constantly talked about protecting justice. Lawyer Byun Ha-gil, I don't know what tricks you used. But don't forget, one day, you'll be the one standing in the defendant's seat. Byun Ha-gil brushed it off with a smile. Of course, that's entirely possible. Thank you for the reminder, dear prosecutor. After school, Ji-hoo rushed to the law office. I've already heard the news. What do we do next? Byun Ha-gil spoke unhurriedly. You know, whenever I step into a courtroom, the prosecutors all feel like writing their resignation letters on the spot and running away. Ji-hoo, anxious, kept shaking his shoulders, until Byun Ha-gil was dizzy. Now we go take care of that murderer Joe Duchan, right? Got it. Just give me a little space first. Before that, do you usually like movies with plot twists? Ji-hoo said he watched them occasionally and had no idea why this was suddenly coming up. Byun Ha-gil directly pulled up a surveillance clip. There's something you have to see. Ji-hoo recognized it at once. This was the deleted security footage. But right now, he only wanted revenge and had no interest in watching it. Byun Ha-gil's tone hardened. No, you have to watch. He dragged the timeline into 2:04 and 2 seconds AM, and then to 2:04 and 7 seconds AM. See anything? Ji-hoo frowned. Nothing happened. Byun Ha-gil had to explain. The problem is with the car. Because there are shock absorbers on the underside, the car's height changes with the load. Here's where it gets important. Look closely at the letters above the license plate. With that hint, Ji-hoo finally noticed something wrong. The car body sat at different heights, and letters that had been blocked before were now visible. In other words, during those few seconds, something major changed. Besides Joe Duchan, there was a third person in the car. Not long after the crash, that third person and Joe Duchan switched seats. In other words, the one who actually killed your father may very well not have been Joe Duchan. Of course, that's still just a hypothesis. We'll have to confirm it. Ji-hoo immediately asked, so what now? If there really is another killer, then after letting Joe Duchan go and then killing him, does it still mean anything? Byun Ha-gil smiled. What are you worried about, Ji-hoo? You've already hired a hitman lawyer. Late at night, the law office was pitch black. Byun Ha-gil stood beside the bookshelf, groping for a hidden mechanism. He remembered, the trigger was between the Go game records and the novel Cold Night. Soon, a soft click sounded. He pulled hard with both hands, and the bookcase slowly slid aside, revealing the weapons cache hidden behind it. Inside were all kinds of firearms and melee weapons, along with gas masks and explosives. After calming Jihu down that afternoon, he had explained the plan in detail. The group Joe Duchan belongs to is the so-called MZ Gang. It's a dispersed, point-like organization with members scattered all over. In other words, if we want to catch the real culprit, we have to take out everyone connected to the case in one go. So I'm going to wipe them all out when they hold a meeting. Jihu hurried to stop him. That's too dangerous, but Byun Hagil just waved him off. I've been in this line of work for over 10 years. Sometimes, you have to be invisible like air, sometimes, you have to seep in like water. Perfect disguise is my specialty. At the same time, the entire MZ gang was gathered at a Chinese restaurant. Sitting at the head of the table, Joe Duchan boasted gleefully, "Listen up, I'll only say this once. I walked because of insufficient evidence, so I'm not guilty." One underling cut in, "But I heard you paid the victim's son $1 billion?" Joe Duchan was unconcerned. That's money he'd never earn in his whole life. With this opportunity, his old man counts as a halfway responsible father, right? Leaving your kid $1 billion doesn't sound bad. All I have to do is sweet-talk a little in the chat room and a bunch of idiots will line up to throw money at me. As he spoke, he looked ahead. Huh? Isn't that the VIP from our investment chat room? Kneeling on the floor, the man begged miserably, "Joe Duchan, please, give me my money back. That was my life savings?" Joe Duchan sneered. "You invested of your own free will, and you knew what you were doing. You saved up your whole life and shoved everything in with your last breath, only to lose it all. Who are you blaming? I've got your whole family's information, workplace, relatives, friends. The photos we took can be posted anywhere at any time. Oh right, your sister's pretty cute." At that moment, an underling leaned in and whispered, "A guest is here." Everyone turned toward the entrance in unison. The newcomer was none other than Byun Hagil, disguised as a Chinese food delivery guy. "I've been doing this for over a decade, and it still baffles me. Why do gang hideouts always have to be Chinese restaurants?" He walked in carrying a crate of jjajangmyeon. Two underlings approached with nasty grins. "What's this? Delivering jjajangmyeon to a Chinese restaurant? Since you're here, let us taste how it is." As they spoke, they reached out to snatch the delivery box. Byun Hagil shouted, "No," and clung to the box for dear life. Joe Duchan suddenly felt that voice sounded familiar. "Take off the helmet and let's see. You know me, right?" With far more people present than he had expected, Byun Hagil had no idea how to handle the situation for a moment. If this kept up, the entire plan would fall apart. When you don't know what to do, then just start hitting. For a split second, everyone froze. Once they snapped out of it, the underlings all rushed him at once, but he dropped them one by one with a single punch each. "I worked so hard to get in here with a perfect disguise, and you just had to make everything this noisy, Joe Duchan." Only then did Joe Duchan recognize him. "You're that lawyer? Why are you here? How did you find this place?" "Because you're rude. Don't you know you're supposed to use honorifics with your elders? Even if I kill all of you, I'd still be found not guilty." Joe Duchan was rattled. "What the hell are you talking about? Nonsense? Isn't that your favorite line? This case ends with insufficient evidence." A big guy to the side snorted. "Insufficient evidence? Seriously, you lawyers can't even do math at a time like this? There's one of you, and there are 9 of us." Something turned in Byun Hagil's mind. He's right. 9 big guys versus 1 little fish. No matter how you look at it, things don't favor the fish. But you probably have no idea what kind of training I went through to catch people like you. At the Glory Orphanage, the tear gas training they used wasn't ordinary gas canisters. It was a hell of throat-ripping agony, repeated day after day until you thought you would die. Even in that environment, he endured, day after day. Now, as he felt around inside the delivery box, he spoke slowly. "Do you know what thought kept me alive until now? That no matter who it is, I want to experience it, even just for one day, to see what it's like." He tossed a round object into the middle of the group. All eyes followed it. With a bang, he spread his arms wide in confidence. Showtime. A second later, his expression froze. He had thrown a flashbang, not tear gas. The VIP had sensed something was off earlier and covered his eyes with both hands. By the time the others squinted their way back to clear vision, what they saw was a bunch of men on the floor flailing around in a chaotic, awkward dance. Rubbing his own eyes, Byun Hagil said, "Petty thieves, this is why people only ever call you small-time punks. No matter how you try to argue, a blood debt must be repaid in blood. You dog," Joe Duchan cursed, "it's too late to beg now. I really am going to butcher you." All the underlings charged him again. In a low voice, Joe Duchan said, "If you just obeyed the law, you could have lived a long life. There's no way you can handle all this on your own." Before he finished speaking, a sudden chill ran through him. Because even though Byun Hagil hadn't moved from his spot, he was radiating an extremely dangerous aura. Wait, before the word was out, 2 underlings had already leapt at him. "Everyone just wait. Jo Duchan's shout came too late. Byung-ha-gil's fists shot out like cannonballs, and the two men were sent flying in an instant. Criminal intimidation. Anyone who threatens others or engages in dangerous behavior toward them faces up to 3 years imprisonment and a fine of up to 5 million won. A thug swung a wooden chair at him, and he used the momentum to grab the man's body. Another rushed in, brandishing a club. Still calm, Byung-ha-gil continued reciting statutes. Extortion. Anyone who uses threats to obtain money or benefits faces up to 10 years imprisonment and a fine of up to 20 million won. After a few heavy thuds, several punks collapsed one after another. Landing solidly, Byung-ha-gil straightened up again. Watching, Jo Duchan trembled all over. In his 20 years of scumbag life, he had developed one survival instinct, the ability to recognize a predator's eyes at a glance. And now, every hair on his body stood on end, screaming, "This man is extremely dangerous." Propping one hand on the table, Byung-ha-gil grumbled inwardly, "Have I really been studying so much lately that my body's gone stiff?" Jo Duchan was already standing in front of him with the utmost respect. "Sit down." The moment he lowered his backside into a chair, "Who said you could sit on a chair?" Jo Duchan hastily dropped to his knees. "From now on, I'll answer your questions honestly." "Why yes, sir. Ask me anything, I'll tell you everything. I can even give you my girlfriend's account password." "Who's backing you?" Jo Duchan stammered, clearly too afraid to say. Byung-ha-gil frowned. "Either stop pretending to be so tough, or be honest. Even if you do talk, I won't believe you. I have a friend who's way more honest than you and will tell me the truth, this guy right here." He picked up the phone and opened the man's social media app. Seeing the lock screen, he couldn't help muttering, "Sorry, ma'am, let me just take a look." Going into the account, he quickly skimmed through the posts. Suddenly, one post caught his eye. The photo showed a gold watch and a luxury car, with a caption advertising some stock reading room. Guaranteed 500% profit. Byung-ha-gil couldn't help swearing. These kids really know how to stir up trouble. Soon, he found a familiar avatar in the chat logs. The corners of his mouth slowly curled up. Now this is getting interesting. The next morning, Ji-hoo went to the law office again. As soon as he got near the door, he shouted, "Mister, I'm here." From the sofa, Byung-ha-gil sighed, "You never once considered calling me Big Brother, did you?" But when he saw Ji-hoo, he still smiled. "Well, look who's here, our student Ji-hoo. Today's special, platinum instant coffee." Ji-hoo replied coolly, "You should be the one drinking more of that instant coffee, mister." Once they were seated, Byung-ha-gil put away his smile. "Things are more complicated than we thought. I'll only say this once, so remember it." There was a sheet of paper on the table. "This is the organizational chart of the group Jo Duchan belongs to." Ji-hoo glanced at it and his eyes widened. "That's impossible," Byung-ha-gil said smugly, surprised. "Huh?" Ji-hoo nodded seriously. "It's drawn incredibly badly. Same as last time." "You're actually joking around with something like an organizational chart? This sheet is a total waste of paper. Don't tell me you drew it?" Byung-ha-gil grew guilty. "Of course not." "Then why are you blushing?" "I'm not." He simply crumpled the paper into a ball. "That's not important. The point is, if there's a group chat everywhere claiming it can make you rich overnight, would students join it?" Ji-hoo thought for a moment. "It'd be weirder not to join. Though I'd feel a bit uneasy." "What do you mean?" "What's weird is, why would they just hand money out to people for no reason? But I'd probably still want to give it a try myself." Byung-ha-gil grew serious. "It's by exploiting exactly that mentality that these people can run rampant." Ji-hoo muttered under his breath, "You still haven't thrown that useless paper away?" At that moment, Byung-ha-gil picked up his phone. "Ever heard of stock reading rooms? Take a look at this chat room." After watching for a while, Ji-hoo admitted, "I don't understand any of this." Byung-ha-gil was blunt as well. "Me neither. So let's just assume there's a place that can tell you in advance which stock will definitely go up. For example, a market manipulator claims that if you join their group, your wealth will skyrocket. People line up to hand over their money to him, and you all buy the same stock together. Once he pushes the price up and dumps his shares, you're all done for. In the end, he runs off with the money. Families that got ruined like yours are definitely not just one or two. The real culprit who hurt your father is very likely connected to this reading room." Ji-hoo shot to his feet. "If there are so many victims, what are the police even doing? Let's go report it right now." Byung-ha-gil waved his hand. Because it's a reading room, they shuffle things around through virtual accounts and overseas IPs. Tracking them is nearly impossible. "Then what? Are we just going to let the real culprit walk free?" Byung-ha-gil gave a small smile. "However, as a lawyer, I happen to have found a breakthrough. Put simply, I've already found the Fisher who lures people into the reading room. As long as we catch her, it's only a matter of time before we hook the big fish." Ji-hoo picked up the sketch. "So who is this supposed to be? From this drawing, I can't even tell if it's a person or an animal." Beads of sweat seemed to pop on Byung-ha-gil's forehead. "Don't be too shocked, Ji-hoo. You should know her. He pulled out a photo. Her. You know her, right? Ji-hoo recognized her at a glance. Of course. Crystal, the super famous screamer. She's the breakthrough? That's right. So I'm going to meet her immediately. But Ji-hoo shook his head. You're heading in the wrong direction. This won't work. Byung-hagil froze. Why? She's known as a ghost. Where she grew up, what her real name is, where she lives, what job she has, all her personal information is completely hidden. There are all kinds of rumors online, but there's not even a single testimony from a supposed former classmate. Mister, how on earth do you know all this? Byung-hagil replied confidently, it's all part of the plan. Isn't that exactly a lawyer's professional skill? Look here, I have the key to meeting her. Ji-hoo thought it was just a normal live stream. With a live stream like this, how is it supposed to help you find her? The next second, he suddenly realized what was wrong. Byung-hagil said calmly, a smart kid like you doesn't need to worry about the future. A ghost, huh? A mysterious woman who even hides the sound of her breathing. I, Byung-hagil, have already found a way to meet her. Meanwhile, the prosecutor's office was in a state of tension. Han Jong-ki was scolding his subordinates. All the evidence has disappeared. What on earth are you doing? Find every single document related to Jo Do-chan, right now. Off to the side, two clerks whispered to each other. What does lawyer hitman even mean? I heard every lawyer who went up against Prosecutor Han before ended up leaving in tears. This was the first time he lost to a newcomer, and it was a total defeat. Han Jong-ki's mind churned. This is impossible. All the evidence and records vanished as if they were lies. It has to be that man, Byung-hagil. What on earth did you do? No, what on earth are you? After a long time, he dialed a number. This is Han Jong-ki. I'd like you to investigate someone for me. At that moment, Crystal was live on stream. I like the kind of man who treats me like a princess, honest and attentive. Someday, that kind of fate will come to me, right? In front of the screen, Byung-hagil wore a look of absolute confidence. Of course. Ji-hoo, beside him, couldn't help muttering, that expression of yours is disgusting. Then Byung-hagil asked, by the way, how do you even know Crystal? She's insanely popular among people our age. Haven't you heard the nickname that made her blow up? Sexy cute goddess, Crystal. Byung-hagil's expression froze. Ji-hoo explained helplessly, what are you thinking, mister? Sexy and like a goddess together makes sexy cute goddess. She's both sexy and cute, she's our generation's goddess. Byung-hagil hurried to say, of course I know, sexy goddess, that's what it means. Ji-hoo thought about correcting him, but decided it wasn't worth it. Anyway, Crystal is on a different level from ordinary streamers. When she's live, she doesn't care about making money at all. How is that possible? Who would stream if not for money? What about her income then? Does she donate at all? Yeah, every last bit. Byung-hagil reflexively echoed, yeah, there's always a time in life when you donate everything? Then, realizing it, he was shocked. Wait, all of it, really? What kind of person does that? Ji-hoo explained, there's a rumor she's a third-generation chaebol who hides her real identity, and streaming is just a hobby. If that rumor is true, why would she care about a little tip money? Byung-hagil mused, that makes it even stranger. What's strange? For a wealthy third-generation chaebol like her, just what dissatisfaction would push her to get entangled with a stinking criminal like Jo Do-chan? Ji-hoo was surprised. Now that you say it, that is pretty weird. So what do we do now? Byung-hagil suddenly stood up. We go see her right away. Ji-hoo immediately poured cold water on the idea. No, I mean, how exactly are you going to see her? Crystal's real name, job, background, address, everything is a mystery. With someone like that, how do you plan to find her? Brimming with confidence, Byung-hagil said, are you underestimating Byung-hagil that much? Watch closely, see what I, Byung-hagil, am really capable of. Dusk fell. During that time, Byung-hagil tried countless methods, all of which failed. From the sofa, Ji-hoo quietly watched, thinking to himself, this guy talks nonsense all the time. Makes you wonder how he ever became a lawyer. I didn't expect him to have such a serious, hard-working side. I once heard of an investigative method. You determine direction from the angle of the setting sun, then pinpoint the location from nearby buildings. It's called detective methodology. Maybe I really misjudged him. This mister might actually be more impressive than I thought. When the sun rose again, the table was piled high with paper cups and empty coffee packets. Clearly, Byung-hagil had stayed up all night, while Ji-hoo had long since fallen asleep on the sofa. Just then, Byung-hagil suddenly shouted, got it. Ji-hoo was jolted awake. Realizing what was happening, he rushed to the screen. You found where she is? From the angle of the sun, or the sound of trains outside the window? Byung-hagil answered calmly, something a bit more reliable than that. Ji-hoo looked at the screen, and his pupils suddenly constricted. Wait, that's... Byung-hagil showed it off excitedly. Yes. I finally drew the one-day date coupon. To get this, I stayed up all night and poured in my entire fortune, 5 million won. The next second, Ji-hoo punched him on the head. You stayed up all night? For this? After he calmed down, Ji-hoo still had to admit, as ridiculous as the method is either way, at least we finally have a chance to meet her. He then raised another concern. When you try to dig up her connection with Jo Do-chan in the reading room, those people are definitely going to cut every link and run. Byun Ha-gil gave a slight smile. You don't have to worry about that step. I've already thought of a way that won't make her suspicious at all. Not long after, at the entrance of an upscale restaurant, passers-by stopped in their tracks, their eyes fixed. Standing before them was none other than sexy cute goddess, Crystal. Looking at her delicate face and the almost unreal proportions of her figure, someone murmured, in real life she's even more over the top than on camera. There's no way a camera can capture these proportions. But who is she waiting for? Could it be her boyfriend? Soon, someone pointed ahead. Someone's walking up to her. Is that Crystal's boyfriend? What kind of monster must he be? He's got to be some Middle Eastern tycoon plus super handsome combo, 100%. They watched the man walk up to Crystal and say, Miss Crystal, I'm the one you arranged the one-day date with today. ID, Curious 123. I heard your ideal type is a man who treats a woman like a princess. Hearing his voice, Crystal quickly turned and greeted him politely. Not far away, Ji-hoo was hiding behind a pillar, secretly watching. In disguise, Byun Ha-gil gave a gentlemanly smile. May I escort you, miss? Ji-hoo grumbled inwardly. Mister, that line is several eras out of date. On the way, Byun Ha-gil made small talk as they walked. It didn't take too long for you to get here, did it? Let me send you back later. I know a pretty good taxi company. Crystal hastily declined, saying it was only about an hour's drive for her. From the shadows, Ji-hoo stayed tense the whole time. What kind of useful intel could he possibly get from someone like her? Can I really pin my hopes on this mister? Soon, the two arrived at the reserved restaurant and sat down. Byun Ha-gil had already studied guides on how to keep a first date with a woman from getting awkward. First step in pleasing a woman, show off a man's charm. Staring at the steak on the table, he spoke solemnly. A thick steak like this is far too cruel for lips as slender and soft as yours. May I cut it up for you? Crystal forced a smile and thanked him softly. The next instant, a sharp glint flashed in Byun Ha-gil's eyes. With a flash of the dinner knife, the steak was instantly reduced to a mess, or, more precisely, into neat yet brutally shredded strips. Wearing a gentleman's expression, he slid the plate over to Crystal. Looking at the steak that now resembled an accident scene, Crystal still maintained her professional smile and thanked him again. After the meal, Byun Ha-gil and Crystal left the restaurant, and Ji-hoo followed from a distance, his frown growing deeper and deeper. From the look of it, he's just enjoying the date, isn't he? There's nothing investigative about this at all. The date soon drew to a close. As they parted, Byun Ha-gil kept up his gentlemanly act, spouting endless polite phrases. Crystal quickly bowed to cut him off. I had a really great time today. Mr. Curious 123, I wish you happiness from here on out. Back at the law office, Ji-hoo started firing away the moment he stepped in. Hey, you were smiling so wide your mouth nearly split to your ears. Hey, drooling like a waterfall, I thought our apartment complex had flooded. Byun Ha-gil replied coolly, Ji-hoo, ending every sentence with hey, doesn't magically turn it into polite speech, you know? Ji-hoo finally couldn't hold back and shouted, did you enjoy that 5 million won date? The money's gone, the time's wasted. What exactly did we get out of it? Frowning, Byun Ha-gil wore an expression of deep contemplation. So Crystal is an even more mysterious and plain girl than I thought. Mysterious. So mysterious. Why is that? Hearing this insight, Ji-hoo was about ready to roll up his sleeves. At that moment, Byun Ha-gil's tone shifted. Why would a woman who's rumored to be a third-generation chaebol be sleeping on the street? Ji-hoo froze. Sleeping on the street? That's impossible. Byun Ha-gil rattled off an address, 22-2, Yeongyangro 172 Byun Ha-gil, Sehyungasai, Gyeonggi-do. Ji-hoo was taken aback. Why are you suddenly bringing up Yeongyangro? Realizing it, he jerked his head up. Don't tell me, that's right, Crystal's address. Ji-hoo was stunned. You actually found her address? How did you do it? I was watching you the whole time, drooling over you the way you were drooling over Crystal. Byun Ha-gil cut him off at once. Enough. Haven't I said this already? In front of me, there is no such thing as a woman who can keep secrets from me. First, travel time. When I offered to drive her home, she said it only took her about an hour to get here by car. About an hour sounds like something you just toss out casually. But her coffee cup was almost empty, the coaster was completely soaked, and the ice had fully melted. That shows she was drinking it all the way here, and the trip really was around an hour. Second, the source of the coffee. That cup was from a niche brand that only exists in one particular area of Seoul. The stores marked on the map are very limited in range. Finally, her smell. A unique, strange odor that even perfume couldn't cover. When powder agents and reducing agents come into contact, The air fills with a certain pungent smell. She carried exactly that scent on her. That means she lives at least near some kind of dyeing factory. Combine an hour's driving radius, the locations of those niche cafes, and the distribution of dyeing factories, and there's only one answer left: this street next to that dyeing factory. The factory is here, and right beside it is that blue sign cafe. By the end, Ji-hoo was staring, dumbfounded. So all that drooling you did actually had a purpose? You're doing that on purpose, aren't you? Realizing the lead was finally clear, Ji-hoo grew excited at once. Then what are we waiting for? Let's storm that factory and grab the evidence before they run. But Byung-ha shook his head. Not yet. Going in blindly is too dangerous. You know what defines a criminal organization more than anything? They're always ready to destroy evidence and vanish. By the time the police arrive, there'll be nothing left. If we want to find clues leading to the real culprit, we have to infiltrate from the inside. Ji-hoo jumped in immediately. Make me one of their members? That'd take way too long. He thought for a moment and added, actually, it's super easy. What do you mean? Didn't you say that as soon as anyone suspicious gets close, they'll cut and run? Then the answer is simple. Just don't let them think you're suspicious. Slipped in without making a sound. Byung-ha shot him a look. If you really need to use the bathroom, go. I'm not joking right now, so stop adding to the chaos. But Ji-hoo's tone was serious. I really mean infiltration. You're good at this, aren't you? Like that time at the Chinese restaurant. Byung-ha froze for a second before realizing what he meant, balling his fists. My fists have quite some weight to them. Ji-hoo hurried to clarify. I don't mean fighting. He leaned in and whispered his plan into Byung-ha's ear. After hearing it, Byung-ha toppled back, nearly hitting the floor. Are you insane? This is absolutely impossible. It's not that I won't do it. There is just no way. Absolutely no way even I could pull this off. The next day, at the entrance of the dyeing factory, Byung-ha stood in front of the gate in bizarre clothing, while Ji-hoo was on the phone, cheering him on remotely. They won't suspect a thing. Just say what I taught you. I'll guide you the whole time. Taking a deep breath, Byung-ha knocked on the metal factory door. In his heart, he was still ranting. This plan is going to fail for sure. Once I prove it won't work, I'll come back and think of something else. A roar came from inside. Which bastard is banging on my door this early? A moment later, a big guy yanked the door open and looked at the figure outside. At that moment, all Byung-ha could think was, it's over. He'd made it this far. There was no turning back. Bracing himself, he raised his face and, using the voice he'd practiced all night, said, Hello, Appa. Yes, this was the honey trap Ji-hoo had come up with. You read that right, this was cross-dressed Byung-ha. The night before, he'd pointed at the hiring female streamers flyer in Ji-hoo's hand, then at himself. The next second, he dropped straight to the floor. Are you crazy? You think being a woman is that easy? How am I supposed to pass as a woman? Ji-hoo patiently explained. They scrutinize even an ant walking in there. If some murderous-looking stinky man like you walks in, what do you think will happen? With today's makeup skills, even an old grandpa can be turned into a high school girl. A little padding here, a touch up there. Perfect. Ji-hoo pressed down on his shoulders. Mister, trust me. You have the kind of face for it. What do you mean, that kind of face? His answer was a full set of makeup tools. Get away from me, demon. You're the one who looks so pretty. Why don't you cross-dress and go yourself? I absolutely can't. Much later, a full-on idol-level beauty was standing in front of the mirror. Staring at himself in the reflection, Byung-ha said, This is idol tier looks already, right? Ji-hoo calmly added, still a little short. Brimming with confidence, Byung-ha declared, This is perfect. Those gangsters are bound to be completely fooled by me like this. Ji-hoo had him rehearse first. Okay, try it once. So Byung-ha cleared his throat and pushed his pitch as high as he could. Appa, you're way too handsome. Now, in reality, the big man at the door stared at the newcomer, his face darkening for a moment. Those bastards actually dared treat an honored guest this lazily? He spun around and shouted into the factory. You idiots. How dare you make a VIP stand outside in the wind? Get out here. Thinking he'd been exposed, Byung-ha immediately lowered his head and whispered into the phone. I knew this plan couldn't work. No one's going to believe I'm a woman. But the next second, you lot, hurry up and welcome the new lady. The plan had worked. Byung-ha was stunned. If that's how it is, then I'll just go all in. If I really get found out, I'll just beat them all down. Smiling as he brushed aside a lock of hair, he said, I heard that if I come here, I can become a top streamer, so I came. The big guy gave him an up and down look, already matching him to the right project in his mind. They'd just been short on a new female streamer, and now one had dropped from the sky, clearly heaven's blessing. How'd you know we're this famous? We're the best stylists in the world, you know. As they walked inside, Byung-ha was still full of doubts. Is it really appropriate to stream in a factory like this? Once again the big man bellowed, Hey, all of you, say hello. Newbie. Scanning the room, Byung-ha could see at least a dozen gang members with the naked eye. Running a live stream out of a place like this really is suspicious. As he observed, he muttered quietly to Ji-hoo, "I'm in, but this place isn't normal." Just then, a few men surrounded him, shouting for him to report his measurements, and some even joked about helping him measure. Switching instantly into sweet girl mode, Byung-ha chirped, "Thank you, Appas, I'm a new streamer. My name is Hyorin. I'll come find you especially next time." The measuring crew immediately broke into grins. "A hot chick, huh? Take care of us from now on." Seeing that no one was the least bit suspicious, Byung-ha let out a small sigh of relief. "This is going smoother than I thought. Next, I just need to find where Crystal is." Right then, the big guy in front suddenly stopped. "On second thought, doesn't this seem weird? How did you find out this place is a streaming studio?" Byung-ha's heart started pounding, and he stalled for a split second. "I'm done for." The man sneered. "You don't have to answer. Just give me your phone." On the other end, Ji-hoo was gripping his phone so hard he almost crushed it, tense to the point he forgot to breathe. If they got exposed here, everything would be over. At that critical moment, Byung-ha tilted his hips ever so slightly, once again biding time with his looks as he said sweetly, "Duchan Appa introduced me. But he just dropped me at the door and left, so I'm guessing you haven't seen his message yet?" As the words fell, Ji-hoo's whole body went rigid. To his surprise, the man froze for a moment, then nodded. "If you just said from the start that Joe Duchan sent you. Come on in." The big guy continued leading the way, and Byung-ha used the chance to scan the area. Aside from the dyeing equipment, there were rows and rows of containers. "Where's the studio supposed to be?" the man casually asked. "Have you thought about what type of stream you want to do?" Pretending to ponder, Byung-ha brought it up in an offhand way. "Lately, those stock reading room streams seem pretty popular, right?" The man gave him a look and teased. "From the way you talk, you act like you know everything. That's exactly our specialty. Right now, there are a lot of people who can give you advice in that area." Byung-ha jumped on it immediately. "Really? Who?" "You know Crystal, right? She's one of the streamers who got famous through the reading room." "Of course I know her. When it comes to reading rooms, nothing beats sexy cute goddess, Crystal. How could you not know her? I poured my entire fortune, 5 million won, into her." After a few more steps, the man stopped. "We're here. This is Crystal's studio. She's your senior, she can teach you a lot. Go in and have a good chat with her." Byung-ha hadn't expected Crystal's streaming room to be a small container converted into a room. He even found himself curious. What is she really like when she's off stream? The moment he opened the door and stepped inside, he instinctively glanced around, and the next second, he was stunned. The Crystal before him was almost a different person from the sexy cute goddess he'd gone on a date with yesterday. Haggard, drained of color, with not even a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Is this really Crystal? Is this the same person from yesterday? He had no idea what had happened to this woman. As he left, the big man told them to introduce themselves to each other, teach the newbie. Pull yourself together. Or do you want to go back to being like that again? After the door closed, the room fell silent. Neither of them spoke. On the law office sofa, watching the monitor feed, Ji-hoo finally couldn't help himself. "Mister, you've got to say something to start the conversation." Lowering his voice, Byung-ha answered, "I know. If I want to get close to the target and find clues leading to the real culprit, I have to first see through what's in her heart. That's what I'm best at." He scooted closer to the edge of the sofa and tried to take the initiative. "Excuse me, are you depressed?" Crystal didn't even bother to lift her eyelids. On the other end, Ji-hoo exploded, "You're rubbing salt right into her wounds." Byung-ha hurried to defend himself. "I was just trying to find some common ground." Ji-hoo sighed. "Do you know what you're supposed to do when a woman is depressed? You don't call it out directly. You share her pain and show your sincerity through your actions." "Mister." Only then did Byung-ha realize he'd been too eager to work the case and had forgotten the most important thing. "Fine. Let me try showing sincerity." He cleared his throat. "Excuse me, do you like soccer?" Ji-hoo covered his face. "We're done. Is that law license of his even legit? Might as well just beat them all up and be done with it." Unexpectedly, this time it worked. Crystal smiled faintly. "I do. I'm a Tottenham fan." She grabbed Hyorin's hand in excitement and started gushing about how much she liked that player, Hong Min. Ji-hoo spread his hands helplessly. "All right then. Another one of Mr.'s miracle plays." As the conversation went on, the mood gradually lightened. Byung-ha deliberately tried to make her laugh. "You know, Nuna, back when I was still a rookie soldier playing in the Army League, everyone called me Byung Hong Min." As they kept talking, the gloom slowly faded from Crystal's face. No one knew how much time had passed before she wiped away the tears at the corners of her eyes. "This is the first time I've shown my real self, completely, to another person. It's also the first time I've talked about myself for this long. It sounds kind of strange, but you feel like a friend I only met yesterday." Silently, Byung Hagil griped to himself, we really did only meet yesterday, but I was using a different set of chromosomes then. Reining in his thoughts, he shifted gears. It's about time to get to the point. She definitely knows who's pulling the strings behind the scenes. How do I ask to draw out the real culprit? At that moment, Crystal spoke first. Your dream is to be a streamer, right? Byung Hagil went with it. Of course. I want to become a top-tier streamer, just like you, Nuna. Suddenly, Crystal opened her arms. Then can I hug you? Though it was a bit sudden, he still went along and hugged her. Crystal whispered in his ear, today is your first day here? Yes. Then right now, you need to run. All that talk about star streamers, it's all a lie. If you stay here, you really will die. Run while you still can. Looking into her eyes, Byung Hagil was sure she wasn't lying. What they're doing here is dirtier than we think. And precisely because of that, I can't back out. I worked this hard to infiltrate and drag. I have to stay until the very end. He stepped back from Crystal's arms and smiled. You don't know how big Hirin's dreams are, Nuna. Right then, his elbow knocked the hot coffee on the table, and it spilled straight onto his chest. Crystal jumped to her feet. Are you okay? Pretending to be unfazed, Byung Hagil replied, thick skin, I don't feel a thing. Crystal frowned. You can't just leave it like that. You'll get burned. Wait, I'll go find something for you to change into. After rummaging around, she pulled out a piece of clothing. This is all we've got for now. Just put on the company uniform. With that, she handed him his sexy swimsuit. Staring at the swimsuit, which had so little fabric it could be sent to the censors, Byung Hagil blushed at once. Wearing this is basically the same as taking everything off, isn't it? He hurriedly declined. I kind of like this wet feeling, actually. But Crystal insisted. Everyone says that at first. Let me help you take it off. Inside, alarm bells were blaring in Byung Hagil's head. If this keeps up, I'm going to be exposed. Crystal pounced and pushed him down onto the sofa. Calm down, Nuna. On the other end, Jiho's scalp tingled. If they find out Mr.'s a man, this whole infiltration is toast. Crystal finally yanked open one side of his clothes, revealing half his shoulder. Her movements suddenly froze. Her eyes widened, locked on that patch of scar-covered skin. Hirin, you've been hiding this all along? Lowering his voice, Byung Hagil said, that's why I didn't want you to see it. It's like a canvas, carved with every mark from the battles I've fought. Want to hear the long, painful story behind it? Crystal immediately hugged him tight to stop him from going on. Don't say it. It's all my fault. I didn't even realize that this is the kind of path you've walked. You don't have to say a word. I'll do my best to understand. Thank you, Nuna. You're really a kind person. On the phone, Jiho finally let out a breath, but still couldn't help complaining. Mister, can you breathe a little quieter? Your breath is fogging up the mic. Meanwhile, at the police station, Jo Duchan was in the interrogation room, still ranting and raving. How can you lock up the victim? I told you a long time ago, it was some other bastard who hit me. Get your boss in here, now. The door swung open. Jo Duchan started cursing before he even looked up. What's wrong with you? Only showing up now? If you've taken on the case, you should drag yourself here right away. But the one who entered was not his lawyer, it was Han Jong-ki. Recognizing him, Jo Duchan's face instantly shifted into fawning mode. Oh, isn't this Prosecutor Han? How could an exalted gentleman like you lower yourself to handle such a shabby little case? Han Jong-ki, expressionless, told him to go over what happened again from the beginning. Grinding down his anger, Jo Duchan said, we got screwed over by that lawyer. He was originally my lawyer, but somehow a switch flipped in his brain, and he stuffed all our crimes and all the evidence into his own pocket, then beat my brothers half to death. Han Jong-ki cut in. A lawyer? Can't fight? Shaking all over, eyes brimming with tears, Jo Duchan said, yeah, and that guy is completely insane. He didn't even need 3 minutes to beat more than a dozen of my boys till they were like dead dogs. Han Jong-ki fell silent, the suspicion in his mind growing heavier and heavier. Why would a lawyer do that? And one with that kind of fighting ability, at that. What is this guy hiding? Byung Hagil, who exactly are you? What are you plotting? Right then, in front of Crystal, Byung Hagil was showing off a reaction dance routine he'd stayed up all night to practice. Crystal watched for a few seconds before cutting him off outright. That kind of reaction will just make people click the refund button. Byung Hagil protested, why? I stayed up all night learning it to show the boss. Crystal quickly shook her head. No way. Let me teach you some real moves first. Stop wiggling your waist around. But Byung Hagil kept indulging in his fantasy. What if the boss happens to like exactly this? You don't know what his tastes are. What if he falls for me at first sight and asks me to be a boss with him? Crystal suddenly raised her voice. No. Startled, Byung Hagil jumped. Why such a strong reaction? She said seriously, from now on, listen to me carefully. Don't joke about that kind of thing with the boss. You really will be in big trouble. He's a very terrifying man. Seizing the chance, Byung Hagil pressed on. What exactly happened? What kind of person is he? What she said next left him stunned as well. Crystal began slowly. He's not a normal entertainment company CEO. He came to Korea 10 years ago, and after laundering his identity, he started running this entertainment company. At the same time, he runs a huge gang network. Byung Ha-gil jumped in. The boss is a Korean gang leader running that kind of business. There's no way any of that can be legal, right? Crystal said she hadn't believed it at first either. You'll understand when you see him with your own eyes. That man, they call him a monster in human skin. In the Brooklyn, New York, there was a criminal gang called the Vipers that even the police didn't dare touch. Born with the seed of a monster in him, he naturally joined the Vipers. It didn't take long before he clawed his way up and sat in the boss's seat. In just a few months, people were talking about the new boss at every corner and alley in the neighborhood. Because when he became the boss, he was only 15 years old. A 15-year-old kid instantly took over the entire gang. Then he went on a mad land grab, swallowing up the surrounding factions one by one, and in the end turned the Vipers into the biggest gang in that state. And then, that incident happened. After that, he had no choice but to flee to Korea. Back then, there was a man named KD, the Vipers' boss's right-hand man. How loyal was he? He was even willing to offer up his own family to the gang and to the boss. That very KD was found dead, already a corpse. His body had no fewer than 46 bullet wounds. The whole gang exploded. Obviously it had to be an enemy hit, but unbelievably, the one who pulled the trigger was no one else but the very Viper's boss he had sworn to follow to the death. And there was only one reason why this trusted lieutenant had to die. When he came in, he knocked on the door twice. You should have known the rules by now. Knocking twice means you're rushing me. Now you understand. Not that you can really hear it, because you're already dead. Soon after, he was arrested by the police. In court, the judge asked if he had any last words. He stared at the judge and said, "Judge, you're beautiful." The judge sternly warned him, asking if he understood the seriousness of his situation. But he just smiled and said, "What does it feel like to wear prison clothes?" The judge was furious, scolding him for daring to joke around in such a place and was about to pronounce sentence, when he suddenly bit through his own tongue. The guards rushed forward to check on him and called an ambulance. Not long after, he was taken to the hospital for emergency treatment. Outside the ward, a black guard whispered, "The rumors were right, he's completely insane. He actually tried to bite off his tongue and kill himself in court. We need to be extra careful. Anyone who can become the Viper's boss at that age must have things we don't know about." Then a white guard cut him off, staring hard into the room. "What is that?" Inside the ward, there wasn't a single person, and the window was wide open. They rushed in and found no one anywhere. Only when they walked to the window and looked down did they suck in a sharp breath. The man had jumped. This was the 8th floor. After that, he vanished without a trace, slipping past surveillance and manhunts and making his way to Korea. On the way, he killed another man and stole his ID. Then he laundered his identity, got plastic surgery, and started operating in Korea. It didn't take long for him to build a criminal organization even larger than the Vipers. And that man is my boss. This streaming agency is just one of many of his money-making operations. Byung Ha-gil asked in bewilderment, "Can something like that really happen? He actually goes around bragging about it himself?" Crystal answered that she had heard it straight from the boss's own mouth, and everyone who knows the boss knows it. But the story will never, ever leak outside. Gossip about me all you like, but once you do, you and your whole family are dead. Lowering his voice, Byung Ha-gil said, "Nuna, are you really allowed to tell me all this?" Crystal gave a bitter smile. "I'm going to die at his hands sooner or later anyway. And if it's you, Hyorin, I don't mind." She showed him a hand signal. "When the boss comes, I'll give you this signal. The moment you see it, leave at once. Whatever you do, don't let him remember your face. If he locks onto you, no one knows what will happen." Suddenly, noise broke out outside. Byung Ha-gil gently pulled the door open a crack and saw the gang members outside frantically cleaning up the place, as tense as if they were waiting for an inspection. With this kind of fuss, could it be that the boss is here? He followed their line of sight, and the next second his pupils shrank. How can it be? Him? The one who walked in was none other than Han Jong-ki. A low-level thug hovered at his side obsequiously. "As you can see, sir, the place is spotless." Han Jong-ui calmly said he was there to confirm a few things. As their group drew closer, Byung Ha-gil quickly pulled his gaze back and hid behind the door. "How does he know I'm here? Did Jo Du-chan snitch? I need to get out, fast." Han Jong-ki said to the thug beside him, "I'm looking for someone." The thug thumped his chest. "As long as you say the word, we can drag out even a cockroach for you." Just then, Han Jong-ki suddenly stopped and looked ahead. He had run into Hyorin, who was just about to slip away. In his head, Byung Ha-gil was doing frantic calculations. "Don't tell me this guy recognized me. Should I just take him down right now? Forget it, no turning back." Feigning composure, he spoke in a female voice. "I'm a genuine woman, you know? Not at all the kind of person you're thinking of. I don't know what's going on in your head, but this is definitely a huge misunderstanding. A short while earlier, Crystal had poked him in the back. He hadn't understood at first, until her finger pointed toward the door. That was the signal she'd mentioned. When the boss comes, I'll remind you like this. Once you see it, leave immediately. Because if he notices you, no one knows what might happen. Now, she had done the exact same thing. Which meant, the man standing in front of him was the very monster who had butchered his own subordinates in New York and bitten through his tongue to escape from court. And now, he was Prosecutor Han Jong-ki. Even a Mongo wouldn't dare write a setup like this. The thug hurried to introduce him. She's new. Big brother Jo Duchan sent her over. Inwardly, Byun Hagil thought, these punks are occasionally useful. I'll see to it your sentence gets reduced from 100 years to 99. At the mention of Jo Duchan's name, Han Jong-ki's brows knit slightly, but he didn't press, turning to leave. He ordered his men, keep a close eye on this place. I'm watching it. Silently, Byun Hagil let out a breath. He didn't recognize me. I need to get out, and from now on avoid running into this guy if I can help it. But the next second, Han Jong-ki stopped. Wait. A subordinate beside him thought he was talking to him, but he turned around, toward Byun Hagil. Can I speak with you alone? In his head, Byun Hagil swore. Crystal hurriedly grabbed his hand, her voice shaking. Hyurin, don't go with him. I told you, it's really dangerous. Although Byun Hagil still didn't fully understand what could terrify Crystal to this extent, that in itself proved, this place stank even worse than he'd imagined. If that's the case, I have even more reason to stay and dig. Gently pulling his hand free, he soothed her. Don't worry. I'll be back. Then he strode straight toward the beast's open jaws. Dear prosecutor, what are you trying so hard to hide behind all this mystery you've wrapped yourself in, and what do you want me to see? In an office, Han Jong-ki got straight to the point. Aren't you curious why I brought you here? Byun Hagil's tone was calm. Prosecutor Han is an excellent prosecutor. Since you called me here, there must be a reason. Before coming, did you know what this place is? Of course. The best streaming platform. Han Jong-ki suddenly moved behind her and lowered his voice. Even so, you still want to stream here? Even knowing I'm a prosecutor people find terrifying? He paused. It's rude to ask this the first time we meet. So let me see your bag first. As he spoke, he reached out and grabbed the zipper. On the phone, Ji-hoo's scalp tingled with tension. He already suspects Mr. You know what I trust most? Evidence. Unlike people, objects don't lie. For example, the things you can't hide. Byun Hagil protested loudly. Rummaging through a woman's bag just like that is incredibly rude. If you want to see something, I can take it out myself. But Han Jong-ki had already pulled out a card, an ID. Ji-hoo's heart clenched. Crap, if he finds out he's not Hyurin. He yelled into the phone, Mr. Get out of there right now. However, Han Jong-ki glanced at it and said evenly, Miss Byun Hyurin. It turned out Byun Hagil had already prepared a perfectly forged fake ID. Only then did Ji-hoo realize that all that earlier panic had been an act, put on for the prosecutor, and had fooled him too. You couldn't have told me in advance? After confirming the identity, Han Jong-ki put the card away. Trust is the first step to any conversation. Since that's the case, I'll show you a bit of my sincerity too. With that, he began unbuttoning his own shirt. Quickly, Byun Hagil covered his eyes, pretending to be a modest girl. Appa, with a face like that being a prosecutor is such a waste. Stop fooling around and put your clothes back on. Han Jong-ki's face darkened. Do you find this funny? Listen carefully. Since you already know what kind of person I am, and I've confirmed your real identity, from now on I'll know where you live, who you live with, who you associate with, what you've done, even what underwear you wear. Do you understand what that means? From now on, until I say otherwise, you won't escape the palm of my hand. On the phone, Ji-hoo still couldn't understand. He went to all the trouble of fleeing to Korea. He could have just played the role of a righteous prosecutor. Why get involved in all this crime? Byun Hagil couldn't see through it either, a prosecutor who outwardly played paranoid justice, yet secretly led a criminal organization. If he was the real culprit behind that crash, there had to be evidence. Of course, with how obsessively meticulous the man was, he would be erasing every trace. Ji-hoo found it hard to believe any evidence would be left. So what do we do now? Slowly, Byun Hagil said, I found something very interesting. Back when I infiltrated the police station to clear Jo Duchan's name, and was desperately destroying evidence, I noticed something strange. On the spoke under the steering wheel, I saw a bit of blood. In a normal accident, if the driver isn't wearing a seatbelt, when they instinctively slam the brakes, their head will slam into that spot, which means that blood very likely came from the real driver. But at the time we didn't know whose blood it was, so we couldn't use it as evidence. Now it's different. As long as we get a sample of Han Jong-ki's blood, we can compare it with that stain. After saying this, he had just stepped out of the office when someone called out, I'm new here too. Immediately, Byun Hagil put on a sweet smile. Handsome Appas, is there anything I can help you with? The thug grinned. We've got a welcome party. Whenever a newbie joins, you get a special welcome with the big boss. Byun Hagil jumped right in. You guys are so thoughtful. Let's go then. Just then, Crystal grabbed his shoulder. Come rest over here first. There's something urgent I have to talk to them about. So he let her go ahead. Out loud he said, I'll let you chat first, since I'm new here, after all. But as Crystal followed the thug away, she was shaking all over. Soon, she was standing in front of a room door. The man inside heard movement and turned around with a broad smile. Is that you, Hyorin? I've been waiting a long time. Seeing it was Crystal, his face changed. What are you doing here? The man was the same subordinate who had been beside Han Jongki earlier. Forcing an excuse, Crystal said, Hyorin isn't feeling well. If there's something you want to say, I can pass it on. He sneered. Don't pretend you don't know. You haven't heard enough of what I want? You've been away for a bit. Have you started missing our welcome party? Her legs gave out and she dropped to her knees, still clutching his clothes as she begged. She doesn't understand anything? He flung her off. You crazy woman, do you want me to beat some sense into you? Looks like I'll have to repeat everything today and then tell it all to Hyorin too. Or simpler, you both come in. Just as he was about to move forward, a hand came between them. Byun Hagil had arrived. Crystal panicked. What are you doing here? Go back. But Byun Hagil acted as if nothing were wrong. He said he wanted to talk to me. My worst trait is my curiosity. The man gave a cold smile. That's exactly what I like about you. Come in. As he spoke, he toyed with Hyorin's hair, full of malice. Whenever we get a new member here, we have a little talk first. If we want good cooperation, we've got to get closer, right? Let me say this first. This room is very soundproof. No matter how much you scream, no one outside will hear a thing. Byung Hagil cut him off. So this is what you really are? Disgusting, filthy, absolute trash. As soon as he said it, he shoved Crystal outside and slammed the door. Crystal pounded on it with all her strength. Hyorin, open the door. I can't let you go through this too. Inside the room, the man jeered. I've never seen a whore this feisty. Coldly, Byun Hagil replied, I know exactly what you've done up to now. I happen to like one-on-one interviews too. With that, he began taking off his clothes. The man was utterly unfazed. Then let's fight and see who wins. I'll make sure you can't get out of bed for 3 days and nights. Then he froze. Hyorin had taken off not only the outer clothes but also the wig. In disbelief, the man said, You're a guy? Softly, Byun Hagil said, like you just said, your shoulders, your skull, and every organ inside your body, I can handle them all. The man bared his teeth in a vicious grin. I've been in this line of work for 10 years, and I still run into something like this. I don't know what you want, but I'll kill you first and then take my time listening. He swung a bat and lunged forward. At the moment the bat came down, Byun Hagil slipped to the side and snatched up a rope from the floor. The next second, the man's wrist was tightly bound by the rope. His whole body flipped to the ground, then was hauled up and left hanging. Planting a foot on the man's face, Byun Hagil said, I can hear you moaning loud and clear. Tell me, what should I do? This room is so soundproof that even if you scream your throat raw, no one outside will hear a thing. Admiring his handiwork, he switched back to a girlish voice. Hyorin doesn't really understand this stuff. Appa, are you shy because it's your first time? With that, he swung the rope like a whip and lashed it down. The man howled. Please, I'll do anything. Just let me go. Byun Hagil stopped and asked, Anything? Yes, anything. Then keep getting beaten. During this time, Crystal had been sitting alone at the door, waiting for Byun Hagil. When she heard the door open, she shot to her feet, about to check on his condition, only to see Byun Hagil with a victim's expression, both hands clutching his own collar in a death grip. Crystal hurried over, anxious. Are you okay? Tears clung to the corners of his eyes as he called out, aggrieved, Nuna? The next second, Crystal, heart aching, pulled him tightly into her arms. It's okay, don't say anything. Let's go back and wash all of this away. So she led the frail Hyorin back to the room, never realizing, the one who had actually suffered psychological damage was that thug. Just moments before, Byun Hagil had forced him to strip naked except for his underwear, then pulled the underwear over his head and made him lie on the floor like a dog. He raised his phone and pressed the shutter. From the moment you started spouting garbage about me, you were destined to become a nationally famous pervert scumbag. The man sobbed while cursing, you bastard. Right now, Crystal was in the shower, and Byun Hagil was sitting on the bed, talking to Jihu on the phone. Jihu asked, Mister, how are you going to get Han Jongki's blood? Calmly, Byun Hagil replied, Relax, I already have a plan. Jihu immediately brought out his straight guy logic. I get it, beat him up first, then draw blood while you're at it. Byun Hagil cut him off. Don't worry, DNA doesn't have to come from blood. Just then, the bathroom door opened. Wrapped in a towel, Crystal stepped out. Hyorin, who are you talking to? She shook her wet hair. Go take a shower. At once, Byun Hagil covered his eyes. Nuna, Crystal looked puzzled. Why are you so shocked? It's just the two of us. Solemnly, Byung-hagil said, even if it's just us, girls shouldn't do this with each other. Crystal tilted her head. What are you talking about? It's because we're both girls that it's fine. Time for bed. She lay back down and patted the spot next to her. Come on, sleep here. Nervous, Byung-hagil said. Nuna, why are you moving so fast? I have terrible sleeping habits, you might not be able to handle it. From the other end, Ji-hoo warned coldly, Mister, if you actually lie down, I'm calling the police. So Byung-hagil had to explain, I'm way too sensitive in a lot of ways, I really can't sleep with you, Nuna. But aside from that, I don't know anything. Nuna, your bed looks so soft. I usually sleep on a cold, hard floor. I'm really curious what a bed like this feels like. At that moment, the phone on the table buzzed. One glance, and Byung-hagil froze on the spot. Crystal immediately sat up. Who messaged you? Ji-hoo anxiously asked. Have the police arrived already? Without answering, Byung-hagil walked straight to the door. Crystal pressed, where are you going? I have to step out for a bit. It's nothing serious, I'll be back soon. Not long after, at the door of another container room, he put on a shy smile. I don't really like clingy guys. You definitely want to know more about me, don't you? The one who had messaged him was Han Jong-ki. Inside the room, Han Jong-ki replied, how did you know? I'm actually very clingy. But the reason I called you is because I'm curious about something. Out loud, Byung-hagil asked, what are you curious about when it comes to me? Inside, he was calculating how to collect the man's DNA. Ji-hoo's beat him up and draw blood plan had already been vetoed. You can also take DNA from hair. The current problem was how to get close to the highly alert Han Jong-ki without blowing his cover. For someone who'd been a hitman for over 10 years, this wasn't exactly a difficult problem. He casually brought up the other man's tie. So late at night, what part of me are you suddenly interested in? Han Jong-ki changed the subject. Are you from Seoul? Do I look like I am? Appa, whoever I meet, they all say I look like some snobby Seoul girl. I'm exhausted. Raising a glass, Han Jong-ki offered it to him. The lemon aroma is nice. Taking the glass, Byung-hagil smiled. I can't really drink much. In reality, he had zero intention of taking a sip. Even if it were holy water, if it came from someone like this, he would never put it to his lips. Han Jong-ki continued, what about your family? My mom and dad are both alive and in great health. And I have a sister who's as ugly as a toad. Interested, Han Jong-ki asked, is she as pretty as you? Leaning toward his ear, Byung-hagil whispered, that's a secret. But our faces look a lot alike. He put a hand on his chest. But as for here, I think I'm a bit more. So we can't share clothes. Then he patted Han Jong-ki's shoulder with a smile. What am I even saying? There's nothing to brag about with that. Just pretend you didn't hear anything. Those were just appetizers. Next came how a pro woman keeps a dumb man on the hook. He deliberately kicked his own foot, and using the stumble's momentum, he fell right onto Han Jong-ki, slamming him down against the table. The motion looked suggestive, but in reality, his hand had already slid past the man's shoulder and neck, taking a strand of hair with it. Inside, Byung-hagil felt a surge of nausea. Having to press down on this guy, disgusting. A chilling look flashed through Han Jong-ki's eyes. Fun, is it? How long are you planning to stay on top of me? Byung-hagil immediately stood up straight and apologized repeatedly, while inwardly sneering, act all you like. I already have your hair. Straightening his clothes, Han Jong-ki said, you ruined the taste of the drink. Sit. Let's talk. Acting casual, Byung-hagil said, actually, I'm a little curious too. I don't know if we're close enough yet for me to ask this. Appa, you're busy every day with prosecutor work, so why run a place like this on top of that? If you just stayed an honest prosecutor, you'd be respected your whole life. Wouldn't that be better? With a thin, cold smile, Han Jong-ki replied, everyone has things they're good at, and things they truly enjoy. Understand? Being a prosecutor is what I'm good at. What I enjoy is somewhere else. Feigning fear, Byung-hagil covered his mouth and gasped. So scary. Prosecutor, you're not using this stuff to kill people, are you? Even as he said it, he rolled his eyes inside. You really dare act in front of me? Kill a few people and you think it's some kind of achievement to brag about? Calmly, Han Jong-ki said, I just took care of someone not long ago. On the road. Almost at the same instant, Byung-hagil pressed down on his earbud, keeping those words from reaching Ji-hoo. He was a delivery driver and a father who loved his son deeply. Anyway, before he left, he gave me a lot of inspiration in many ways. The impact is totally different between hitting a person with a car and hitting a tree. Later I realized, doing it with my own hands feels even better. On the other end, Ji-hoo kept calling, Mister? Why can't I hear anything? Lowering his voice, Byung-hagil asked, isn't it dangerous if you get caught? Why would it be? Do you know why I can talk to you so casually about this? Jumping into the fire without thinking of the consequences is what rookies do. I am a prosecutor at this country's Ministry of Justice. When a case happens, the first person on it is me. If any evidence shows up, I'm also the one best suited to wipe it away. At that point, he seemed to feel he'd said enough. That's all that needs to be said. We'll stop here for tonight. You'll sleep in Crystal's room. By now, Byung-hagil had achieved his goal. He had the hair sample. Once he sent that strand together with the blood found on the steering wheel spoke for testing, he could prove this man was the real killer of Ji-hoo's father. Next came another problem: how to get Crystal to take off that collar and escape this hellhole with him. Just then, an idea flashed through his mind. So there was such a simple route all along. He turned and asked, "Is this car yours?" Dangling the keys, he said, "Hyorin's never ridden in a car this nice. Why don't we go for a drive right now? Just the two of us." Under such tight surveillance, sneaking out was nearly impossible. So instead, they would walk out the front door. A man like you doesn't want to show off his car? You've been dying to, I know it. Come on, let's go for a ride, Han Jong-ki. However, the other man seemed uninterested. Why would I do that? Byung-hagil had already prepared his follow-up lines. I'm really curious about this car, and I want to see your driving skills too. Then he abruptly clutched his forehead. I feel a little dizzy. I haven't been in the sun much lately. I'm probably low on vitamin D. Unexpectedly, Han Jong-ki actually nodded. Come along. We'll go get you some vitamin D. Well, since Appa insists, he said, putting on a smile. In the car, Han Jong-ki sped all the way. Byung-hagil commented as they went, this car's performance is insane. The smell of fuel just sweeps past like the wind. Han Jong-ki asked, you know a lot about cars? The words slipped out of Byung-hagil's mouth. Every man has a dream car in his heart. As soon as he said it, he realized it was wrong. I mean, I'm just a bit more interested than the average girl. I don't really know much about cars. Appa will have to teach me everything. In his mind, he was already certain. No matter who he is, as long as he's a man, in this situation he can't escape the same pattern. Praise him, smile at him, and he'll lose his head. As soon as this hair sample is compared and matches the blood on the steering wheel spoke, you're finished, bastard. But there was still a problem right now. He couldn't let the man drive him straight to the forensics center. He had to pass the sample to Ji-hoo first. While Han Jong-ki focused on driving, Byung-hagil quietly pulled out his phone and arranged to meet Ji-hoo at the convenience store next to the law office. All that was left was to find a perfectly natural reason to get out of the car. Inspiration came quickly. With a car this expensive, he absolutely won't risk the interior. Byung-hagil cleared his throat. Appa, I think I need the bathroom. Really, I'm about to pee myself. Look, there's a convenience store right there. He pointed ahead. I'll just go quickly. I'll be right back. He had already calculated that the price of the car's interior would be enough to make anyone choose to stop. Sure enough, the car pulled up in front of the convenience store. Byung-hagil hopped out. I'll be right back. Then he headed straight into the shop and met up with the waiting Ji-hoo. Ji-hoo asked urgently, what happened? Almost died. But that's not the point right now. He shoved the little bag containing the hair into Ji-hoo's hand. Take this to the National Forensic Service immediately. Then he rushed to the counter. Boss, can I use your bathroom? The owner hesitated. Men's or women's? Men's, of course. No sooner were the words out than a furious roar came from outside. Lawyer, I know you're in there. Get out here. One look through the glass and Ji-hoo was stunned. A chill shot through Byung-hagil. I have to see what's going on, but I can't let Han Jong-ki see me. Boss, where's the back door? When they got back to the law office, neither of them could believe it. Those two had actually shown up again. It was the same debt collectors as before, Woo Tae-sik and Wong Tae-gil. They stood up and closed in. Finding people like you is our specialty. Woo Tae-sik sneered at Ji-hoo. I've been diagnosed as needing 780 weeks of treatment and have to stay in the hospital until I'm 60. And that big shot lawyer? Not being recognized, Byung-hagil let out a quiet breath of relief. He wanted to kill them right then and there, but if anyone connected him to Hyorin, it would bring even more trouble. Woo Tae-sik walked up to Ji-hoo. Ji-hoo hurried to block him. Mr. is busy. He's not coming today. Grinning, Woo Tae-sik said, don't be nervous. There's a simple way to make that lawyer show up. He brought his face close and raised his hand viciously. We just have to beat you half to death. Seeing the situation spin out of control, Byung-hagil couldn't keep up the act any longer and was about to step in, when a hand moved even faster, clamping down hard on Woo Tae-sik's wrist. The newcomer was Han Jong-ki. Woo Tae-sik, not recognizing him, asked, you a lawyer too? Ice crept into Byung-hagil's chest. He had to show up now? Damn it. It was Ji-hoo's first time seeing him up close as well. He froze on the spot. Tilting his head slightly, Han Jong-ki glanced at Byung-hagil. Is this the bathroom? With an awkward smile, Byung-hagil said, it was too loud just now, so I came to take a look. Inside, he was calculating at high speed. Looks like he still doesn't know this is my office. I need to get everyone out of here, fast. Pushing up his glasses, Han Jong-ki said, this is a place of business. Leave immediately. Otherwise I'll call the police for unlawful intrusion. Woo Tae-sik snorted. You friends with that garbage lawyer? Then you can both die today. In a cold voice, Han Jongki said, from now on, don't provoke me again. So what if I do? Before he could finish the sentence, a heavy fist smashed into his jaw. In the blink of an eye, a flurry of punches sent Wu Tae-sik flying, and he crashed hard to the floor. Putting a foot on him, Han Jongki said, I'll dig up every detail about you, where you live with, who you associate with. Every crime you've ever committed will end up in my hands. Eyes wide, Byun Hagil saw that in Han Jongki's hand was his work ID. Silently, he prayed, please, just smash that thing with one punch. No such luck. With a single glance, the man clearly read the name. Tossing the two thugs away like trash, Han Jongki said, so our lawyer Byun works in a rather shady place. Since I'm already here, I should at least pay him a visit. He looked at Jihu. Call Byun Hagil for me. Forcing himself, Jihu said, I'm pretty sure he's too busy to pick up right now. Suddenly, Han Jongki grabbed his wrist. Whether he picks up or not, we'll only know if you call. Do it now, in front of me. There was no way to stall any further without exposing everything. Han Jongki sighed. Looks like I made an unreasonable request. The next second, he snatched the phone right out of Jihu's hand. Jihu tried to grab it back, but he knew perfectly well he stood no chance. Han Jongki had already dialed the number. The moment Mr.'s phone rang, everything would be over. Right then, a prompt came from the phone. The customer is currently on another call. Startled, Jihu instinctively looked toward the door. It turned out Byun Hagil had prepared in advance. As long as he called Jihu at the same time, when Han Jongki dialed in, it would show as busy and his own phone wouldn't ring. With no choice, Han Jongki handed the phone back to Jihu. Jihu had just turned to leave when a hand pressed down on his shoulder again. Wait, have we met before? Jihu's heart sank. Their first encounter had been because of that crash. Although Han Jong-ui had only glanced at him briefly in court, if he now connected this student with the accident, both Mr. and he would be in danger. Clenching his fists, Byun Hagil stepped forward and wrapped his arm around Han Jongki's. A face like that is everywhere, every class has at least one. Let's go. I want to get back to the car. But Han Jongki shook him off and grabbed Jihu's jacket. Jihu struggled. Let go of me. If you don't, I'll report you. Pressing his face in close, Han Jongki whispered, how long are you planning to keep pretending, Kim Jihu? Jihu had never expected that with just a quick glance in court, the man remembered details as small as his untied shoelaces. At this moment, Jihu could only pin all his hopes on Mr. Coldly, Han Jongki pressed him. Why are you in Byun Hagil's office? Byun Hagil is Jo Duchan's defense attorney. Just as the atmosphere grew tautest, a shrill siren sounded outside. Tilting his head, Han Jongki listened. Very close, heading this way. Without a report, the police wouldn't come. A moment before, Byun Hagil had quietly called the police amid the chaos. Pulling on Han Jongki's arm, he said, someone must have reported something. I'm scared. Let's go. If the police stopped them to check IDs, he'd be exposed on the spot. And the same was true for Han Jongki. So he went along with it and left, saying, I have another appointment. Suddenly, he stopped. The moment I saw Kim Jihu, I had a great idea. There's something I was best at back in the States. It won't be long before your whole family is reunited. On the way back, the speed was still insane. Inside, Byung Hagil's mind was in chaos. That whole play just now was too risky. This guy's brain runs way too fast. If I keep acting like this, I'll get exposed sooner or later. I have to change the plan. By the time he returned to Crystal's room, he'd already decided, get her out as soon as possible. Crystal jolted awake at the sound of the door. Where did you go? Took a spin with the boss. He climbed onto the bed, and Crystal started lightly thumping his back, sulking. Do you have any idea how dangerous that was? Suddenly, she stopped. Confused, Byun Hagil asked, what's wrong? Softly, Crystal said, please, you have to be careful. You don't know how dangerous this place is. Byun Hagil asked in return, if it's that dangerous, why don't you leave, Nuna? Crystal was at a loss for words and didn't know how to answer. Taking her hand, Byun Hagil said, let's get out together. I'll help you escape. We'll leave naturally. He hadn't expected those words to actually crack open her defenses. But then she suddenly screamed, you'll die. Let go of me. She was shaking all over. If we try to run, we'll both die. Lowering his voice, Byun Hagil asked, what actually happened? It was as if Crystal was yanked back into a nightmare. Before, there was a manager and a female streamer who fell in love and wanted to run away together. They got caught on the spot. They beat the man with a bat covered in nails, and filmed the whole thing while forcing the girl to strip completely. Back then I was still a newbie and they called me over to wipe the blood off the floor. I was kneeling there, trembling with fear, when someone grabbed me from behind and whispered in my ear, if you don't want to end up like that Uni, you'd better behave. Later I found out that girl was sold off somewhere else. That's the truth of this place. Byun Hagil's face went completely dark. People like that should be collectively castrated. Forced a smile, Crystal said, I'm fine here. After being in this place so long, it's the outside world that feels scary. I'm really okay. You should go, Hyorin. She took something from under her pillow and handed it to him. Take this with you before you leave. It's my most precious thing. I want to give it to you. He looked down and froze. It was Crystal's ID. The girl in the photo looked almost like a different person from the one before him now. This is the real me. I'll keep living under the name Crystal. But at least, to be on Hagil, I want to be remembered as my true self. Just then, Crystal's phone lit up, an incoming call from Han Jong-ki. On the phone, he said there was an urgent streaming issue and told her and Hyorin to come to Studio C immediately. When they reached the designated spot, Byung-hagil instinctively stepped in front of Crystal. With all this rush, are you planning some kind of surprise? He had no idea what this man was trying to pull, or if he himself had already been exposed. Calmly, Han Jong-ki said, you start work tomorrow. Get the studio set up first. Come in. They entered a studio designed like a subway car. Jokingly, Byung-hagil asked, what is this room? Its purpose looks highly suspicious. In no time, he realized, there was only one entrance, now completely blocked by Han Jong-ki. From behind came the man's voice. Hyorin grew up in a loving family. Turning, Byung-hagil saw a gun pointing straight at him. With a near-deranged grin, Han Jong-ki said, you don't know the rules? The first standard for choosing a streamer is that she must have no family. If something happens, it's easier to clean up. When I asked about your family, that's what I was checking. And even so, Joe Duchan still recommended you. He must have his reasons, right? Crystal panicked. Hyorin, run. I'll block him. Is that so? Han Jong-ki sneered. In the next second, he ripped off the wig. Byung-hagil. Crystal froze. Why would victim's family member Kim Ji-hoo be in Byung-hagil's office? Very suspicious. But I've already come up with one hypothesis. What if he took on both the suspect and the victim's family at the same time, a double commission? Murmuring the name, Crystal felt it was oddly familiar. Then it hit her. The man from the one-day date. He approached you from the beginning to use you. He's been lying to you from start to finish. Carefully currying favor, just to take what he wanted. Then, throw you away. Well, am I wrong, Mr. Byung-hagil? Byung-hagil stayed silent. Smirking, Han Jong-ki said, I can help you. He handed the pistol to Crystal, his tone eerily calm. Relax. The person you trusted stabbed you in the back. So let's take revenge on this filthy human together. But Crystal still couldn't believe that Byung-hagil was that kind of person. She couldn't accept that every word and every moment she'd shared with Hyorin all this time had been carefully scripted lies. That he had dared deceive and use her. This had to be false. Something like this shouldn't happen. In Crystal's eyes, only despair remained. Why did things like this always happen to her? What had she done wrong? Her voice was already trembling. Tell me, it's not like that. Hyorin, I'm begging you, say it's not, right? With steady eyes, Byung-hagil said, I'm sorry. I did lie to you, Crystal. From the very start, I approached you to get information. Shut up. As long as I got what I needed, stop talking. She raised the gun and aimed it at him. I'll kill you. Like a snake, Han Jong-ki's voice coiled around her. Shoot. He's the one who toyed with you. Crystal closed her eyes. She no longer wanted to be a victim, no longer wanted to be used and toyed with. This time, she wanted to live for herself. She pulled the trigger. Nothing. No bullet. Coldly, Han Jong-ki laughed. Wrong. I knew you'd pull it. Couldn't you tell the magazine was empty? He snatched the gun back, slotted in a magazine. Stupid little whore. That's why your life has always been such trash. Someone who can't tell who to trust is bound to die sooner or later. The muzzle swung toward Crystal. 2 gunshots exploded almost at the same time. Lunging forward without hesitation, Byung-hagil threw himself in front of Crystal. The bullets tore through his arm and shoulder. Watching this, Han Jong-ki was on the verge of madness. What kind of hero act is this? Is it friendship or lust? Are you that eager to die? Either way, it's only a matter of order. Glock 19. Suddenly, Byung-hagil spoke. What? Said Han Jong-ki. Pressing his finger against the barrel, Byung-hagil went on. Glock 19. Empty weight about 600 grams. A 9mm parabellum round weighs about 7.5 grams. Empty magazine 80 grams. Right now this gun weighs around 680 grams. Conclusion, the magazine's empty. Incredulous, Han Jong-ki asked, how do you know that? Pressing his forehead against the barrel, Byung-hagil said, can't you feel it, Han Jong-ki? The next second, he planted one hand on the floor and lashed out with a kick, sending the gun flying. Once he'd regained his balance, he curled his lips. All right, next, it's my Jong-ki Appa's turn to get beaten. Unfazed, Han Jong-ki said, Byung-hagil, I admit you're a capable lawyer. This investigation really did make me sweat quite a bit. On the surface, Byung-hagil quipped, flatter me all you want, you're not dodging even a single punch. But he knew full well, Those shots had already caused serious blood loss. He had to end this quickly and get Crystal out. Outside, footsteps grew louder and louder. He gave a cold laugh. What generous hospitality. In no time, the space behind Han Janki was filled with underlings holding bats and knives. Before you leave, get some rest. I've already dug your grave. Right now, Byeon Hagil had to look tough, and that was no easy feat. Luckily, he'd avoided any arteries earlier, but with blood loss this severe, he could hold out no more than 10 minutes. He sat on one of the seats, bandaging himself as he sneered. What's with guns these days? Are they toys? My prostate didn't even twitch. Han Janki warned. Before you act cool, at least wipe off the sweat. Where did you hide the evidence from that hit and run? I don't know. Maybe the evidence did a hit and run too. It didn't matter to Han Janki. Whatever. Don't tell me then. That case will sink sooner or later. As a lawyer, you should know this. Once the person holding the evidence disappears, the evidence is meaningless. Byeon Hagil knew full well that escaping in front of this many people was almost impossible. With Crystal still outside, he had to come up with something. The next second, a spark flashed through his mind, and a complete escape plan took shape. With a light chuckle, Byeon Hagil said, "Sorry, but I'm not quite ready to lie down in a coffin yet. At the very least I want to live in an 84-square-meter apartment first." He suddenly yanked down a handrail in the car and hurled it at the main breaker on the panel. The whole car was plunged into darkness. Some thug yelled, "Stay calm and wait. That guy can't see either." The words had barely left his mouth when pain lanced through his eyes and he screamed. Two of Byeon Hagil's fingers had jabbed precisely into his eye sockets. "I can see." Clutching his head, the thug rolled on the floor. "How the hell did he hit my eyes?" Gritting his teeth, Han Janki gave a tight smile. "I've been in this line for 10 years. Whatever tricks you think you're playing, I've got my own ways. Listen up, Chongji, Daegil, Jangwon. Quiet. Take out your phones and turn on the flashlights. If he doesn't know your names, he can't target you." He pulled out his own phone as well. This is the cutting-edge 21st century. Under his breath, Byeon Hagil swore. This bastard actually knows how to use his brain. Then he suddenly smiled, but not very well. The next instant, two punks dropped one after another, and another head was smashed to the floor. A cold chill ran through the first man. In the dark, how is he dodging and hitting us dead on? What is this ability? He remembered an urban legend. Is it some kind of echolocation superpower? Speechless, Byeon Hagil said, "You punks really use your brains only for weird things." Lifting his head, he said, "What era is this again? The 21st century high-tech age. The newest VR devices all come with infrared cameras. In other words, to my eyes, your faces are even clearer than your futures. Next, it's your turn to get beaten." Soon, every underling in the car was on the floor. Leisurely, Byeon Hagil said, "Now it's our Janki Appa's turn. Even if you lie there and play dead, I can still see you." He moved toward the sound of his voice. Suddenly, a pungent smell hit his nose, not water, but gasoline. What a lunatic. Not long ago, Crystal had brought up the word thrill-seeking. A certain psychological trait. Only at the edge of danger does the brain release dopamine. Like those free climbers who scale skyscrapers with bare hands. Byeon Hagil just couldn't understand. Do they have two lives? Are they that eager to die? But Crystal had shaken her head. It's the opposite. They do that in order to stay alive. For those who overseek stimulation, dopamine almost never releases on its own. So the things that look fatal to normal people are, to them, the only things that make them feel alive. Humans can't live without dopamine. And the scariest part is, unless they're betting their lives, dopamine doesn't appear at all. Back then, not understanding, Byeon Hagil had asked why Crystal suddenly brought this up. This has nothing to do with us, does it? But Crystal, terrified, had told him that the Both here sought thrills to a degree that couldn't even be measured. Now, Byeon Hagil hurriedly told Han Janki to wait, that they could talk this out. With a cold laugh, Han Janki said, "You idiots." Then he flicked a lighter to life. "If it's too dark, just light a flame, right?" Suddenly, he tossed the lighter into the air. Seeing this, Byeon Hagil cursed through clenched teeth. This maniac. The next moment, the gasoline roared to life and the entire clean train car was swallowed in flames. Outside, sensing something was wrong, Crystal hammered frantically on the door. She had no idea how to repay the man who had saved her life. Inside, the punks were in a panic. At this rate, they were all going to die. Right now, Byeon Hagil had no good way out of here. He shouted, "What are you doing, Han Jong-ki? You're a prosecutor of Korea. Why are you personally destroying the tower you built with such effort?" In the firelight, excitement burned in Han Jong-ki's eyes. "I once thought that with a wash-clean identity, I could start my life over. Work like crazy and get results worthy of the effort. Expensive liquor, charming women, none of it satisfied me. Catching vicious criminals didn't do a thing for me either. I didn't know what was wrong. Then I understood. Long ago, in another case, he had interrogated Jo Duchan. Relying on the fact that there was no death penalty in Korea, Jo Do-chan had been as arrogant as he liked. Without hesitation, Han Jong-ki had used vigilante violence and written it up afterward as self-harm. From that moment on, Jo Do-chan had been utterly terrified of him. But to Han Jong-ki, that bit of violence was nowhere near enough stimulation. After a lot of thought, he had finally found the answer. Now completely deranged, he clutched his own throat. Only now do I realize, only when I live on the edge of the blade do I feel alive. Squeezing his neck, face flushed red, he was still smiling. From the first time I saw you, I thought, we're the same kind. I was as happy as meeting a brother. So today, only one of us gets to walk out of here alive.